When considering who to promote in Unicorn Overlord, you have a lot of different possibilities in front of you, so much so that you might wind up getting a little bit of decision paralysis. Today, we're going to try and help you fix that. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel.
Unicorn Overlord.
Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, my coverage of Unicorn Overlord, other strategy RPGs, or the gaming sphere in general, a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would help me out immensely and be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. So the topic of the day today, promotion in Unicorn Overlord and everything that entails. We'll be going over very briefly how you can actually begin to promote your units, as a lot of people probably figure that out at this point, but never hurts to give a quick reminder. And then why promotion is so important in this game, what priority you should give to different types of units. Should you be promoting or should you be increasing your unit sizes, etc., etc. There's a lot to talk about here, so let's begin. First off, how can you begin to promote your units? And really, what is promotion in Unicorn Overlord? Well, first of all, if you're familiar with something like Fire Emblem, then the promotion mechanics in Unicorn Overlord should be quite familiar to you. Also, if you've played things like the Ogre Battle games, but obviously there's a lot more overlap here in terms of audience with Fire Emblem players than Ogre Battle players, just because it's a way bigger audience. You know, what can you do? By promoting a unit in Unicorn Overlord, you do a couple of things. You give them an extra active and passive point, a new really cool sprite, and potentially, if they're a high enough level, they begin unlocking access to new attacks and abilities. All of these are extremely important. The stat boosts that you get from promoting from a base class to an advanced class are like pretty significant. You know, when you have a healer, a cleric, you just get an extra 8 HP, just to name one stat from promoting, you can see how it can become a pretty big deal. I mean, I've had units get +5 to their physical attack or +3 to their defense, different things like good stat boosts, multiple levels of stat boosts for just promoting them. This does not reset their level. This does not change anything like it would in something like Fire Emblem. You don't have to worry about getting a unit to level 20 and then promoting it so that when their class goes back to 1 in an advanced class, you can get the maximum amount of XP. 50 is the cap for all characters, for all classes, and when you promote, their level stays the same. So you could have a unit at level 8 if you wanted to and promote them, no big deal. You can begin promoting your characters when you get to Renown rank B, which for me happened midway through Drakenhold, depending on how many quests you've been doing and how thorough you've been with exploration, liberating towns, etc., etc. It could be faster, shorter, but that's around where it happened for me and where it'll probably happen for a lot of you. Coincidentally, this is also when the enemy starts to wind up having promoted characters in their units, so kind of gives you a hint of how far along you are in terms of the game's progress. Once you do hit Renown rank B, you'll be able to go to any fort or any city that has the ability to enlist characters and choose the promotion option. In this menu, every class that you have that is not already promoted, you will see an honor cost associated with promoting that unit, as well as some small facts about how they will change once they promote. This cost in terms of honors will range from anywhere from 25 to 50, and there's a loose kind of order to this. Basic infantry classes like your fighters and your housecarls tend to cost 25, your unique characters with unique classes all tend to cost 50, and then generally the more complicated a class seems to be in its functioning, or potentially the more powerful they are, although I'm going to talk about why I don't really agree with that idea in a second, the more it tends to cost. Your flyers, your cavalry cost 35, your support healers, your clerics, things like that, if I'm remembering correctly, cost 30. So there's a range here, but it's not typically too big of a range unless, again, you're trying to promote unique characters. And speaking of that whole stronger classes cost more to promote thing, I've seen some people say that, but I don't really think that that's a metric that you should use. If anything, I think simplicity is the metric for whether a class is cheap or more expensive to promote. Fighters and housecarls do one thing, and they do it really well. Fighters are very tanky and are very good at guarding their allies, especially against arrow attacks, and they only get better at that once they're promoted. Housecarls are really good at dealing a lot of damage and spreading around a ton of defense debuffs, and that's pretty much it, but they're really, really good at it. Each of these classes functionally have one major role that they like to fill, so they're pretty cheap to promote, because they're just going to be doing that thing, but even harder once they promote. Other classes, other characters, might wind up having a lot more going on just in their base functionality or once they actually promote. So that's where some of this wiggle room tends to come in. Like I said, though, don't use this as a metric based on, well, it's cheaper or more expensive to promote one of these over the other, so these ones that are more expensive must be stronger. I'll focus that first. That's not what you should be doing here. You need to be more strategic than that. And speaking of which, we're going to talk about what I would recommend you prioritize in terms of your promotions next. Obviously, the cost of different promotions is going to be a factor when you're choosing who you're going to promote when and where. You might be able to say, well, I might promote a unique character with a unique class for 50 honors, or I could promote a couple of basic infantry units for 25 a pop and get 2 promoted units, right? Like, that seems like a pretty good deal, and you wouldn't be wrong. You would not be wrong. And generally, the fact that when you promote, you get so many bonuses makes it beneficial a lot of times to get more promotions faster than more expensive promotions slower. Now that we've talked about how you can promote, let's talk about why you want to. The number one reason that you want to promote any given character, and eventually, of course, you want to promote everyone you're using because it's just a net benefit for you, is the fact that you get that extra active and passive point. That change alone constitutes such a massive power swing for you, I cannot overstate how valuable it is. Just being able to get an extra round of attacks in, functionally, theoretically, doubles the amount of damage that you're doing, or the amount of healing that you're doing, or whatever. Like, you just get more stuff that you can do in one fight, which makes you infinitely more powerful. The addition of another passive point, again, increases the amount of healing you can do, the amount of damage that you can resist due to evades, or blocking, or guards, etc. The different types of status effects that you can spread around with some of your support casters, all that type of fun stuff. And again, it's going to dramatically increase your combat capability. This is not to say that a basic class can't perform even later into the game. They still have their functions that they fulfill, and there's ways that you can get around this lack of resources through things like Carnelian pendants, lapis pendants, other items like that. But just being able to put resources that you're getting from playing the game into a character and doubling the amount of resources that they have available to them to fight, it's obviously incredibly powerful. That's to say nothing of the fact that, again, like we mentioned previously, the nice stat boosts that you can get to a lot of these classes that can make them far more resilient, deal far more damage, and be far more capable for literally, basically free, and the fact that you get another equipment slot that can change depending on the class. Some classes get another accessory, some classes get another weapon, a shield, different things like that. But again, like, equipment in Unicorn Overlord is insanely powerful, so being able to just put another piece of gear on a character to complement whatever build you have going on for them and for the squad that they're in is huge. It's absolutely massive. Promotion is so powerful and so important that I would absolutely recommend that you focus on promoting your entire army before you focus on getting all of your unit slots unlocked and upgrading them to include a 5th member once you hit Renown Rank A. I'm at Renown Rank A right now. I'm about a third of the way through it. I've not increased a single unit to have more than 4 members. All of my units have 4 members, but none of them have 5. And I'm nearly done with Elheim, the 3rd region in the game. I've not needed to have 5 characters in a unit. Will it be beneficial? Will it be powerful? Absolutely. I'm already planning the types of characters that I'm going to put in any given unit once I do get that unit to 5, but right now, all I care about is getting all of my characters promoted because it's just that big of a power boost. I would take a squad of 4 promoted characters over a squad of 5 characters where some of them are promoted and some of them aren't any day of the week. It's just that much more powerful for you. Now that we've talked about the benefits of promotion, let's talk about the priority, and we kind of already started talking about that a little bit with the priority for promoting versus expanding your units, but in terms of what characters and classes you want to promote, that's what I want to talk about next. The quick and easy answer is that there is no quick and easy answer to promotion. You need to look at what your units are doing, what types of characters and classes you're utilizing, if you're just using all unique characters, or if you have a bunch of recruited mercenaries, a mix of the two, where you're at in the game, what types of enemy units you're encountering the most, if you have counters for them, or if you're getting bullied by a certain type of enemy and you need to have something that can defend you from that, etc., etc. There's a lot of things to consider here. But to me, there are some guidelines to follow. First of all, I do highly recommend that you promote Elaine right out of the gate. I know, again, it's expensive, and you don't necessarily want to just focus all of your unique characters with unique classes to promote first. Yeah, they're very strong, and they only get stronger once they promote, of course, but you're focusing a lot of resources into one character when you could be spreading that around to more units, especially when you're earlier in the game and your honors are limited. That said, the fact that Elaine gets a horse just for traversing around the map saves you a lot of time and makes traversal and exploration and resource gathering way faster and easier, which is going to make your overall gameplay experience much better. So that's a huge benefit just on its own. The other benefit is that Elaine makes for a very good mixed frontline tank and a damage dealer. And the gains that he gets from promoting, again, that extra active and passive point and the extra stats, makes him so much better at both of those roles. Not only is he able to benefit from cavalry boosting skills, like if you put him in a cavalry squad, he'll get extra attack and things like that from their abilities, which are insanely strong. but he just gets so much more HP, attack, defense, magic defense, etc. He's able to fulfill his role so much better, and pretty much any unit that you put him in will excel. One of my best units is just kind of a mixed offense and defense squad that relies on a lane to tank for them and then heal himself up with his lean edge and just never really need to worry about being supported, so that they can all focus on dealing damage and countering specific types of enemies. He's incredibly strong, and of all of the unique classes that I've acquired thus far in the game, I would say he's by far the #1 choice to promote early. No one else has been nearly as effective as him, and while I do have everyone promoted now, I think going back, I would have chosen to promote other classes over some of the unique classes first. Of course, if there is a particular unique character that you love, that's a big focus of one of your squads, and they're not promoted yet, go for it. You're the only one who knows what your most effective classes and characters are, so you need to take that experience into mind when you're choosing who to promote. If it doesn't quite align with what I'm saying here, that's fine. Get your faves promoted, and I'm sure you'll be fine. But that cost is something to consider. Now, as far as generic classes and standard characters go, there's a lot more wiggle room here. The #1 thing to look at when you're trying to decide if you're going to promote someone is how much use are they going to get out of that extra active and passive point. For example, we can look at clerics. Clerics are very, very powerful. The healing that they're able to put out, the way that they're able to restore statuses, cleanse debuffs, potentially resurrect allies or heal whole rows of allies, they're very, very powerful, but they're also extremely resource hungry. Some of the best cleric skills come from staves that you can get as early as like midway through Cornea that require 2 active or passive points to be able to use. And yes, you can slap a Carnelian pendant or a Lapis pendant on your cleric to be able to use those, but those are resources that you want for other places in the army as well. By promoting your cleric, they now naturally have 2 active and 2 passive points to use, which means a lot of those skills they can just start swinging with right out the gate. No other gear required, then maybe a piece of gear that actually gives them the skill to use. That is an example of a class that is very, very hungry for those extra points, and that you should probably be giving priority to if you're in any way utilizing them in your army. On the flip side, characters like fighters, they do really appreciate the extra stats. However, a fighter with just a decent sword and shield can already fulfill their role pretty well. Like, if you have a flyer in your squad with a fighter and then like a couple other guys, toss your fighter a shield like the Lapis shield that gives him an extra passive point, or maybe just a Lapis pendant, and he's going to be able to block just as easily and just as effectively as a promoted Vanguard would. And again, the argument that I was providing with clerics as well, like, yeah, you want those resources elsewhere too, that does still apply, but because the fighter is more limited in scope, being able to slap a temporary item on them to make them have more points to use for that limited scope is an overall better use of resources, because you can always then promote them down the line and move that resource somewhere else. You don't need to invest the honors right away to get them those active points and those passive points when you can just put an item on them for a little while until you can afford to promote them. Beyond that, you need to look at the synergies that you have in your different units. Do you have a very heavy physical-based squad? Maybe you have a Housecarl like Albin that you're using in that squad. Yeah, then maybe consider promoting them to Viking. Having them be able to deal more damage, be more resilient, have more points to spread more debuffs around, and let the rest of your squad do their work even better is obviously going to be extremely valuable. You have a heavy cavalry-focused squad, or a class like a Dark Knight that, because of the way it functions, where it wants to take damage, get reduced HP, empower its attacks, and then swing, also very important. Some classes really come into their own once you promote them because of the abilities and the stats that they get access to, and I would definitely prioritize them if you're using them. On the flip side, something like a Griffin Rider or a Wyvern Rider or Wyvern Knight, you probably don't need to focus on promoting right away unless you have a specific strategy like using Dragoon Dive or something on a Wyvern that they need the extra points for. Just their natural evasion, their natural durability, either through abilities like Wing Rest or Parry, things like that. And the fact that their attacks are already really strong mean that they're going to be pretty durable even if they aren't promoted while you're working on getting some of your lobies powered up. There's a lot of things to consider here, and like I said, you're the only one who knows what your army looks like and what it truly needs, but hopefully some of these ideas give you a little bit of a guideline in whatever unique circumstance you have on how you want to approach using your resources and promoting your allies. It won't take that long to get your team promoted. Again, I'm almost done with Elheim now, and I have all of my characters that I'm using promoted, and I've got way more characters that I'm using than most people do because of my whole Patreon backer custom characters thing that I do in these campaigns. If you're just playing the game normally, you probably have like your list of unique characters and then maybe a couple of mercenaries that you've recruited to fill in certain gaps in the types of units you like to use. It's going to be way easier to get the people you like promoted early on. That said, if you're looking for ways to get more honors quickly, to try and get more promotions out there faster, I do have a couple suggestions on that as well. Number one, absolutely don't forget to go back to your towns that you've liberated previously in other areas and either finish upgrading them so you can station a guard there, or if you've already finished upgrading them, keep dumping your resources into them as they continue to pile up. What do I mean by that? Well, when you have stationed guards in an area, say in Cornea, even if you're in Elheim, Drakenhold, Astoria, wherever, they will continue to bring in money and resources from that zone specifically that you can't really use anywhere else unless it's a universal resource like a basic type of ore. So those resources are going to continue stacking up in your inventory unless you're like compulsively selling them off for cash, which you could do. But what you should be doing, in my estimation, is every once in a while opening up that fast travel menu, hopping back to a zone that you've previously cleared and haven't been to for a little while, and just take a little tour of force around the continent. Show your face, let the people see their liberator, know that he is still fighting for them, and then donate some resources along the way. You can get a surprising amount of honor just by dumping extra fish and flowers and timber into various different towns to support them and getting money and resources back in return. When I first started to promote my characters, I got like 3 promoted before I ran out of honors, but I hadn't been to Cornea in a long time, so I zipped back, and by the time I was done, had enough honors to promote like 4 more guys. It was wild. It was a huge power swing, and I was just sitting on those resources not doing anything with them. Do this periodically, because you get these resources from your stationed guards every time you finish a major fight, and you'll be rolling in the honors before you even know what to do with it. The second thing that I can recommend is find an easy sigil trial that you can clear rapidly, and you'll get a good amount of honors built up that way as well. There's guides all over the place about this. You can find them all over YouTube. Hell, even in the comments of a lot of my videos, people have been posting their suggestions. But the long and short of it is find a sigil trial that you can like easily move a flyer squad to the boss to wipe them in 15 seconds. Do that, repeat. Every time you clear one of these, and if you're able to pick off a couple extra squads while your flyer assassins are moving off to the boss, even better, you'll get 15, 20, 25 honors a pop. That's like nearly enough to promote most characters. So if you do this 3, 4, 5 times, you get a decent little chunk of renown, money, and honors to then promote a couple more dudes. If you really want to be extra degenerate about this and you're playing on a higher difficulty mode, you could always turn the difficulty all the way down to story. As far as I've seen, it doesn't actually impact the amount of resources that you get from finishing a mission. So turn the game down to story to the point that you can sneeze on an enemy boss and they'll fall over, and then just start raking in the earnings that way. If you really want to, that's a path that you can follow as well. It might seem like honors are fairly limited at first, but if you take just a second to go off the beaten path, return to retread some areas you've been before, you can rake them in very, very quickly. And that, my friends, is my overall guide and suggestions on how and when and where and why to promote your units in Unicorn Overlord. I hope this has been a benefit to people. It's not a specific, like, you need to promote this class in particular because it's so good and this is why. We'll be talking about that type of stuff when I eventually get into doing individual class breakdown videos. Here, I just wanted to give people a guideline on how the system works, what recommendations I would give on how to actually look at what your units are capable of and how to evaluate if they deserve a promotion earlier or later, and overall give you all the impression that, yeah, it's up to you, because your army is your army and no one else's, so I don't know what you're working with. But hopefully now you at least have a framework to evaluate what you are working with and make informed decisions. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. If you have any further questions about this topic, let me know in the comments, and either I or someone else will be happy to help you. And if you have any other suggestions for topics that you would like to see, or modifications I can make to my videos, or anything else, leave that down there as well, in a constructive and kind way, please, and I'll see what I can do. With that said, though, I hope you all have a good night. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe and healthy out there, and remember, be good to each other. Bye now.